Let's see. So today, back on the air, and you know what it is. Actually, so we're still figuring out the show, still figuring out the format, but we were working through The Divided Mind. I'm just gonna do a light recommendation though. I feel like this is a good time for. Oh wow, I have old coffee. Isn't that? But let's see. See if I can move these books because they're in a pile. Oh, hey Django. There we go. But this is a good book that I think is underrated. It's a Misanthrope by Moyer. Also, Moyer is pretty underrated. I don't know. I feel like there's not as much talking about playwrights other than like Shakespeare. But like there's a lot of options when it comes to that. The Misanthrope just reads really modernly, and what I like about alternative forms of theater, like the French, is that if you look at no theater and if you look at Shakespeare's theater, women were actually banned from it. And that's just, I think that's weird because then pretty much invariably you have young boys playing the roles of women, which I think is awkward. But then in no theater, they banned that too. So then they just had men play. It's fucking wild. I think Mishima has a video on that or something. But, anyways, another episode of High Lit. This is Carlisle Fletcher from Writing About Weed. You need to get a vape or something. That would work for this format. I don't know. I don't know. It's fire. I don't know. Yeah. 2 minutes in. Where are we starting? Let's see. I said I was just going to go to the marked off pages. So what do we have marked off on page 26? Yeah, fuck it. What's going on in the Misanthrope? Okay. I mean, it's just like I think it. I think it reads very modernly, and so like just like lines from it are like, I think we either blame or praise according to our taste and length of days. There is a time of life for coquetry, and there's a season two for pedantry. I don't know. It's compared to Shakespearean theater. I feel like it reads a little bit more sprightly, a little bit just more inviting. Oh, I guess probably just like read it aloud, but that's a recommendation. Even people who don't read that I've gotten this book have liked it, so that's why that's where that is. But in more important news, the International Associate for Cannabis is Medicine. They just dropped. They dropped again. That shit's sick. So let's see what's fun here. We got cardiovascular disease. We got opiate use. We got Mexico. We got multiple sclerosis, which I think is everybody's ever gonna watch anything that I make. Patients with fibromyalgia, yeah. Something that's fucking crazy is that cannabis is included in check insurance, so we'll cover like 90% of your weed. So you're just like, oh shit, I'm depressed or whatever, and then like you can just smoke dope for essentially free, provided by the government. I think that's pretty lit. But their use has quadrupled. So their medical program has 4 grams sold for every 1 gram sold last year, which is when last year, that's when the insurance covered it. But Let's see what's fun here. What's fun? Okay, I think the multiple scoliosis. Let's see what's going on with that. What's going on with that? It's a 28 patient study, and they were treated with cannabis oils. So there's visit 1, and then 4 weeks later, which is visit 2. So giving it and that, and then each one has a neuro. Excuse me. Has a neurological examination, which is disability status, ambulation, so like moving, walking test, stuff like that, routine blood test, plasma cannabinoids, etc. So the results were that between 10 and 25 milligrams, the most common side effects were dry mouth, adverse effects were dry mouth, drowsiness, dizziness, and nausea of mild to moderate degree. 2 patients experienced pronounced symptoms with excessive dreaming and drowsiness respectively, which led them to stop. So it was between 4 and 7 grams. So for most of them, spasticity. We're looking up this word. We're looking up this word. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know that one. Yeah, so it's when muscles stiffen or tighten. That's what I thought it was, but like, how does it? Figure out how to pronounce it on your own time. And sleep disturbances decreased. There was no impairment in disability, ambulation, dexterity, or processing. So their conclusion from the study was that treatment with medical cannabis oils was safe and well tolerated and resulted in reduction in pain intensity, spasticity, and sleep disturbances in multiple sclerosis patients. This suggests that medical cannabis oils can be used safely, especially at relatively low doses with slow titration, as an alternative to treat scoliosis related symptoms when conventional therapy is inadequate. So that's pretty lit. So yeah, it's a study that's 28 people, right? That's what we're looking at. Yeah, 28 people. Like that. So that went well. Let's just post that one in the chat. That seems fair. It also fits in with the. There was a study. Let me see. Here we go. Here we go. This was like June last year, so this isn't new, but it's just so it's Israeli researchers present the first clinical evidence that cannabis at microdosing levels relieves pain. So this article also gets into it was published in the European Journal of Pain, and then that gets into microdosing and shit like that. So that works with what was it again? So it's a spray, like it's an inhaler, and it just does like like a small dosage of it. So then they did a clinical trial using their product, and found that it was effective in microdosing, dealing with pain. So that was SYQE Medical, which is a med tech company developing technologies. Yeah. Yeah. So there we go. That's just talking about the how am I tying that in? Yeah. So that's going into the conclusion of this, which is that medical cannabis oils can be used safely, especially at relatively low doses. And it's like, well, maybe especially well at relatively low doses. You also combine that with the bioavailability argument, which is that oil soluble active ingredients will not be absorbed into the body as well as water soluble compounds. So point being that like if you have something that's oil soluble, your body's not going to get all of it because of the fact that it has to be digested and it has to be processed as a it has to be dietary. Whereas like with a water soluble thing, you can just like hold it in your mouth and it'll enter your bloodstream. So I think that with microdosing, the reason why that's so cool is that when you're going through the human digestion, it's a bit of a shit show. which is a pun, but also you just don't know who's going to absorb what amount of chemicals at what rate. You just can't really control for that, especially in the variation among people. You don't know what the time to activate will be. Like the metabolism is such an inconsistent thing across people. But when you're dealing with something that's water soluble, you can generally think it's like, yeah, between like 10 and 2 minutes, it's going to reach an effect because it's going to hit your bloodstream and then it'll just go through your body through the blood. And that's pretty, your blood doesn't circulate your body in like 2 minutes. I'm pretty sure it's 2 minutes. You're like, you should get that checked out. It's not like, I don't think there's too much of a variation in those things, but it just allows for a consistency in prescription. So like say if you have like a 10 milligram thing that's oil soluble, you have no idea how much of that is active after consuming it. So it's like if you have like 100 milligram edible and you eat that, you could only be getting like 32 milligrams, but if you have 10 milligrams in a water soluble edible, then it's going to be 10 active milligrams essentially within like a high percentage that like you're going to use all of that. That's going to be the dosage and it's going to be consistent. So if you combine that with microdosing with multiple sclerosis and other conditions, it's like it's pretty strong. It's looking pretty fucking strong. I mean, I should bring up the synthetic you can overdose on synthetic cannabinoids. They're giving me spice, but there was like something up in the. So let's see, Asian synthetic cannabinoids, because there was like a crisis I think last year. Yep. So they're saying in 2010, 9 people died to the combination of this and this. Well, I don't think that's relevant right now. If I can't find this quickly, I might have to just like get it next time. Let's see. Acute mental disturbances. No, there's nothing on overdose on that one. Not on overdose on that. No, nothing. So, well, yeah, I'll just pull that one up later because yeah, in Asia, synthetic cannabinoids are more of an issue because of their, like in America, you have like several. I mean, Canada's nationally legal, so it's like you're literally we have a bigger border with Canada than we do with Mexico. So it's like with America, there's like the largest border has legal weed. So it's like even if we have iffy laws, it's like very easy to find. But if you're like in the middle of Asia, there could be like no legal weed. So it's like synthetic cannabinoids bypassing that THC restriction are just like much more easy to traffic. You're not going to be punished as harshly for having them. Like who even knows what they are? It's kind of like the same thing as like selling fake LSD, where it's like it's like a fake LSD can fucking ruin a brain. It's like basically you could be selling a strychnine and shit like that. And but if you were found with it, if it was like an unregistered or unidentified chemical that just happened to be psychoactive that you were selling as LSD, you wouldn't be punished for it because it wouldn't be illegal to have that substance, And I think like synthetic cannabinoids run into the same thing with the Asian market particularly, or they were last year, 2 years ago, and they were just really prevalent and people were fucking dying, Again, I'll find the story for like Wednesday, but yeah, not good news. Not good news. Just because it's like nobody fucking dies from smoking pot. Nobody does. Maybe I mean we have that review on the cancer. So the what's his 1 second. He's a great dude. He's fucking talented as hell. I think that study's awesome. And let's see who are we looking at? Who are we looking at? Thomas Clark. Thomas Clark's research. From he's from South Bend, but I'll just link that in the chat too. Already covered this one, so this one's probably old news, but it's the scoping review and meta-analysis, which he found that cannabis is cancer preventative more than it is cancer causing. So that's cool. What's going on with my phone? let's see. That was unprofessional. I should stay focused. So I don't know, not to get into this one again, but I do fucking love this study. It's about just like it covers a lot of the things that are like lifestyle with cannabis, like in particular, it has a good there's a relationship between smoking weed and being thin or having a healthy weight. So like people who smoke weed tend to actually be a median weight, which is like, you know, not to say anorexic, but also not to say overweight. And because of that, it means that, you know, that actually like combats the obesity crisis, because if people are smoking weed and it helps them maintain a healthy, you know, weight class, that's great. You know, like that actually is empowering them to have less joint pain, less liver failure, less diseases that are like correlated to obesity, and also less cancers that are directly related to obesity. Like I don't think people really think about that. Where it's like the obesity crisis is also, I mean, first off, a mental health crisis, but also a cancer crisis and a disease and an infection crisis and an inflammation crisis. Like, you know, suffering from obesity isn't just like, oh my god, like, you know, like that must be like, you know, they eat a lot. It's like, no, dude, like their body can literally metastasize. Like it can be, you know, like so what Clark found is that through the hypothesis is that through limiting obesity, it limits cancer mainly. I'll just get that from the discussion. So we're just gonna look up obesity. Let's see, let's just go to the discussion part. The entire study is incredibly readable too. That's why he's one of my favorite authors as well. It's just that like it's as somebody whose like job it is to get this stuff exposure and to like get this stuff, you know, out more into the perceivable public, like it just really helps when the person that I'm working with is already incredibly readable. Let's see. So I go through his math elsewhere, but he's got an estimated 10% of that's what he estimates that cannabis reduces the cancer risk by. 1 second. Woo. Woo. So it is possible that the actual decrease in cancer risk due to cannabis use is even greater than the estimated 10% decrease in risk emerging from the current analysis, as few data are available for the impact of cannabis use on the RR of cancers that are not exposed to the carcinogens of smoke. For example, those associated with obesity. Cannabis users show decreased BMI and obesity rates. This decrease is known to be associated with a decreased risk of obesity-related diseases, including DM. We'll look it up later. And non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Many cancer types are positively associated with obesity, including cancers of the liver, breast, colon, and rectum, prostate, stomach, pancreas, uterine corpus, gallbladder, esophagus, kidney, ovary, and thyroid, as well as multiple myeloma. Cannabis use may decrease the risk of these obesity-related cancers simply due to the reduction in BMI associated with cannabis use. In addition, however, most of these cannabis types are known to be inhibited or destroyed by cannabinoids in laboratory studies. Cannabis use is therefore very likely to be associated with substantial reduction in the risk of or mortality from obesity-related cancers. Unfortunately, no recent data, and few data overall, are available for the RR of obesity-related cancers in cannabis users. Data providing risk ratios for obesity-related cancers are limited to 6 data points from 2 studies. The first study, using data from the early 1990s in California, provided data for esophageal, colorectal, and prostate and breast. Another study from 2006 included data on esophageal cancer. These data provide a mean analytic percentage of 8.995%. While not statistically significant, this is consistent with decreased risk. Note that these are likely to underestimate the impact today, as the obesity rate in the United States was 25% lower at the time those data were collected than it was today. Whew. Oh, I think it's just because I smoked weed. But yeah, that's high lit, baby. That's high lit. Gotta keep it chill and relaxed. That's what we are. Data can be used to provide a rough preliminary estimate of the potential magnitude of the impact of cannabis use on cancer diagnoses and death. This can be obtained as the product of an annual number of cancer deaths or diagnoses, the fraction of the population using cannabis, and the decreased risk in cannabis and cannabis users. They were projected to be 1.7 million diagnoses and 607,000 deaths from cancers in the United States in 2019. According to the current census data, the U.S. population by age 18 and above is 255 million. A recent poll suggests that 55 million, or about 21% of these people, use cannabis, and 35 million, or 14%, are regular users. If the 10% decrease in cancer risk indicated by the current analysis is accurate and applies all cancer types, then cannabis use would prevent as many as 23,800 to 35,700 cancer diagnoses, and 8,498 to 12,747 cancer deaths each year. Some cancer types are relatively common while others are rare, and some types have much greater mortality rates than others. This is the current data set. Only testicular cancer show a trend to increasing risk in cannabis users, and testicular cancer is relatively uncommon cancer with a high survival rate. Furthermore, there's a high heterogeneity in the data, and no data are available for many cancers. The actual impact of cannabis use on cannabis cases and deaths, therefore, cannot be estimated with any degree of confidence with data available at this time. Fucking excuse me. However, given the large number of cancer diagnoses and the large number of people using cannabis, even a moderate impact on cancer risk will have significant public health implications. There is increasing awareness that cannabis provides therapeutic medical benefits. By decreasing risk of cancer, obesity, and DM, leading causes of premature death and disability, is becoming clear that cannabis use may also meet the definition of preventative medicine. Like all medicines, cannabis has harmful effects, especially if misused. However, cannabis use rarely results in fatalities and is thus safer than many pharmaceuticals. Therefore, moderate adult cannabis use may be associated with a net improvement in public health. Fuck yeah. That's what we like to hear. That's what we like to read. Oh yeah. Yeah. Anyways, so I'm just, I'm bouncing off the walls here just because, it's like, again, this is just what we're doing. But so that part that I wanted to read earlier was, do you think the world is losing sleep over that flock of lovers which you keep, or that we find it difficult to guess what price you pay for their devotedness? This is some shit talky shit. Which one is this? Is this the Misanthrope? I think so. I think that this one, because I'm pretty sure yeah, it does. So it's a 5-act one. Let's forget the follies of the times and pardon mankind for its petty crimes. Let's have an end of ranting and of railings and show some leniency towards human failings. Ooh. This world requires a pliant rectitude. Too stern a virtue makes one stiff and rude. Good sense views all extremes with detestation, and bids us to be noble in moderation. The rigid virtues of the ancient days are not for us. They jar with all our ways and ask of us too lofty a perfection. Wise men accept their times without objection, and there's no greater folly, if you ask me, than trying to reform society. Like you, I see each day 101 unhandsome deeds that might be better done. But still, for all the faults that meet my view, I've never known to storm and rave like you. I take men as they are, or let them be, and teach my soul to bear their frailty. And whether in court or town, whatever the scene, my phlegm's as philosophic as your spleen. That's a banger. This book's a banger. I maintain, and it's no more a matter for disgust, that men are knavish, selfish, and unjust. Then the vultures dine upon the dead, and wolves are furious, and apes ill-bred. I don't know, man. It's clever. Even though it's translated, I feel like they still keep the framing of it. And I guess we're getting off course here because it's just this is my damn show. But like getting into that sort of perfection, it's like I feel like that is ironic that that's what Moliere is talking about, because I mean I don't think this is an original thing to argue, but that Shakespeare is the greater playwright than the French, and that Shakespeare is more immortal because of exactly the fact that he's a flawed genius, and that he is carrying like his own ideas. He's original in the ways that like his plays don't work. Like Hamlet would be, it's like a philosophical novel almost. It doesn't really work as like a play where it's just this guy just fucking monologuing about nothing and like meter, like it's very strange. And because of that, it's absolutely revolutionary in a lot of ways. I mean, it copied off Marlowe in some part. I mean, that's just the name of the fucking game, name of the game. But when you compare that with like a Racine, that his work is perfect. Like that play, The Misanthrope, is perfect. The pacing's so good, the size of it works, the delivery is great. Again, I think you should go into literature blind because I think it does just hit different. So I just read you a little bit of it. I'm not going to give you any plot, but like that one's good. This edition also comes with Tartuffe. It's translated by Wilbur. I do not regret. This is a great purchase. It's a great purchase. Highly recommended. Let's see. Let's see what else does my poorly focused brain want to tackle right now. But I think that does. Like, I'm pretty sure Delacroix talked about that a little bit. And also obviously canon. Delacroix's journal. This is he's a better fucking writer than he's a painter. I also need to get more into Poussin. I think that's how you say his fucking name. That's the one thing that sucks about painting, is that like 85% of it is knowing how to say people's names correctly. Oh no, the fan's going crazy. Okay. Let's see. Is there a way I can? Maybe I might straighten out my legs. Yeah, we're like in the bedroom. By the way, this is just us hanging out, having a good old time. That just is what it is. Let's see. We're about halfway, so that's good. That's good. Not to be running out the clock. You need to make a host of sacrifices in order to give painting its full value. And I think I do make a great many, but I cannot stand it when an artist shows his hand too much in his pictures. Yet many exceedingly fine things have been conceived by exaggerating the emotional effect. Rembrandt's pictures are an example of this. Also the work of our own Decamps. Such exaggeration comes naturally to them, and is not at all disturbing in their work. I was thinking about how I look at my portrait of some lady. Rembrandt would only have shown the head, the hands, and the clothes he would have scarcely indicated. I do not say that I prefer the methods that allows every object to be seen according to its importance, for I have an immense admiration for the Rembrandts, but I would feel it clumsy if I were to attempt such effects. Here I am in sympathy with the Italians. This guy is the ne plus ultra of rendering in every part a picture, and so is Rubens. In subjects where pathos is required, the latter may perhaps have an advantage over the glorious Polola, for he knows how to focus attention on the principal subject and increase the force of the expression by using certain exaggerations. On the other hand, there is something artificial in the methods, and we are just as conscious of it, if not more so, as we are of Rembrandt's sacrifices and the vagueness which he uses so noticeably in less important passages. Where my own work is concerned, neither method satisfies me. My aim, and I think I have often achieved it, is to keep the means unnoticeable, and yet to stress the interest in a subtle way. This, once again, can be obtained only by sacrifices, and they must be made in a manner infinitely more subtle than Rembrandt if they are to satisfy me. So, I'm gonna tie this back to Hero Over Time, which I bring up. I think I brought it up. Whatever. I love it. It's fucking great. But I think that it is mammoth, or like it's an excellent work of, I don't know what it's called. I don't know what it's defined as, but I would say like romantic existentialism. It's on the border between those things, where it's like it's going towards existentialism, but it still hasn't removed the romantic trappings of it. And I'd say that it sacrifices like the sacrifices the that you know sacrifices that element of realism, but it doesn't. It still feels as real and as lived in and as breathing of a character and of a world, even in the smallness. And it's like in that I would compare also to Eugene Onegin, where it's like because it was the first phrase that came to my mind was slavishly rewritten, and like just like completely just obsessed over it. It's like it's a nearly perfect work that maintains that level of drawing in the focus to certain key elements while fading away with the lesser elements of the work. Like where it's like you're only mentioning the symbolic parts of the journey. You're not talking about every blade of grass that's like faded and like the little like weird sort of pukey checkerboard pattern of like looking down at the carriage, and like the psychological aspects of being like, well, what does the puke mean to me? There's a little bit of the positive satisfaction of like taking care of something that's sick, and like maintaining it's like that sort of obsessive psychological deconstruction doesn't really happen in those works, but it flirts with it, And I think that just relating that to this passage from Delacroix has to do with sacrificing some level of detail or some level of further explaining the point, further belaboring the point, just to reach a more artistic. I don't want to. No, I would say more tasteful effect. It doesn't need to necessarily be artistic, but certainly I think it does have to do with taste or like construction. At the moment, I cannot recall among the great painters any model of the perfection I require. Poussin never sought it and did not want it. He planted his figures side by side like statues. Did this come from his habit? According to what they say, of making small models so to get the shadows correctly? But although he may have gained this advantage, I should be more grateful to him if he had obtained a more closely linked relationship among his figures, even if it had meant less accuracy in the observation of the effect. Paolo Veronis is infinitely more harmonious. Here I'm speaking only of the general effect, but in his pictures the interest is scattered. For one thing, concentration of interest is less necessary in compositions like his, which are often conversation pieces, episodic subjects. In paintings where there are fewer figures, his effects are apt to be somewhat trite and conventional. He distributes the light more or less uniformly, and here, as with Rubens and many other great painters, we find a constant repetition of certain habits of execution. No doubt the great number of commissions that these artists received led them to use such conventions. They were craftsmen to far greater extent than we imagine, and thought of themselves as such. Artists of the 15th century painted saddles, banners, and shields, as did the makers of the stained glass window. And this profession was merging with that of the painter, just as today is merged with that of house painting. I paired that one with Achilles' shield, so I just wrote in the book that I just put that there because I don't know, it seems like it's a relevant symbol to that discussion. It is the glory of the two great French painters, Poussin and Lesueur, that they made successful attempts to break away from such commonplaces. Not only did they revert to the simplicity of the Flemish and Italian primitive schools, where frankness of expression was never spoiled by habit of execution, but they opened up entirely new fields for the future.
And although they were immediately followed by decadent schools where tyranny of tradition, and especially the custom of going to Italy to study contemporary masters, soon stifled the urge to study the truth. The true great masters prepared the way for the modern schools that have broken with convention and have gone to the very source to find the effect of the imagination that belongs to the realm of painting. If later schools have not followed exactly in the footsteps of these great men, they have at least recognized their passionate protest against academic conventions and hence against bad taste. David, Gross, and Proudhon, whatever differences we may notice in their styles, kept their eyes fixed upon the two fathers of French art. In short, they upheld the independence of the artist in the face of tradition by teaching him to respect whatever is useful in it, and the same to have the courage to stand by his own feeling and to prefer it above all else. Poussin's biographers, and there have been many, have not sufficiently considered him as one of the greatest innovators. The style of painting with which he grew up, and against which he protested in his works, covered the whole realm of the arts. And in spite of his long career, its influence survived him. The decadent schools in Italy joined hands with the schools of Lebrun and Jouvenet, and later with men like Van Loo and their successors. Lesueur and Poussin did not stem this torrent. When Poussin arrived in Italy, he found the Caracci and their followers lauded to the skies, dictators of glory. No artist's education was considered complete without the visit to Italy, but this did not mean a study of such true models as the antique or the 16th century masters. The Caracci and their pupils had the monopoly of fame. It's probably like Cariassi or something. Uh, their pupils had the monopoly of fame and had become the dictators of glory. That is to say, they praised only what resembled their own work, and used all the authority of their position as the leaders of the reigning fashion to plot against anything that tended to break out of the ordinary rut. Domenichino, himself a product of the school, but one who was led by the sincerity of his genius to seek for truth of expression and effect, became a target for universal hatred and persecution. They even went so far as to threaten his life, and the jealous fury of his enemies forced him to live in hiding, so that he almost entirely disappeared. This great painter, who combined that true humility which is almost inseparable from great talent, with a gentle and melancholy nature, was probably brought to an early death by the universal conspiracy against him. When this relentless war was at its height, with every man's hand turned against one who offered no defense, not even through his work, Poussin, still unknown and outside the cliques. This independence of all convention is very marked in Poussin, in his landscapes, etc. As a scrupulous and poetic observer of history and the emotions of the human heart, Poussin is unique. So, I love this journal. It's like, it hits that level of convincingly nerdy. It's also like, his bedroom book. He didn't really plan on it being published, so it was just inexistent. But I think he's a good reading. I think he's a good place to be. Maybe we're returning to the OCD study. Maybe we're gonna tie it back to that. I mean, so that's medical stuff. We got back to the cancer study. We got all that going on. I think it's readable. That's what I'm trying to get people seeing, is that there's stuff to be able to teach yourself. Where it's like even like studies on like borderline personality disorder and cannabis oil. So it's like there's definitely some research probably on most topics that you'd like to consider, and then see if there's a lead there or not. Because some of the stuff like just doesn't work, but some of it maybe. I should come into this with a better plan, but we're 2/3 of the way fucking through, boys. So what also is just crazy about we're going to R.D. Laing's work now. What's crazy about this book and the idea of this psychological inquiry is the idea of violence to psychotic, where it's like they have created a coherent system that allows them to have a worldview. And it's like usually the problem why they need that worldview is this guilt of not living up to something or not being good enough, stuff like that. This book's always a rabbit hole. I guess the entire conversation of this topic is a rabbit hole. Everyone should be able to look back in their memory and be sure he had a mother who loved him. All of them, even his piss and shit. He should be sure his mother loved him just for being himself, not for what he could do. Otherwise, he feels he has no right to exist. He feels he never should have been born. There's this study on this girl named Joan, and it's fucking fire. It's fucking fire. I got, you know what? That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. We could do it now. We could do it. I got 19 minutes to go. Let's see. So Jones says, we schizophrenics say and do a lot of stuff that is unimportant. And then we mix important things in with all this to see if the doctor cares enough to see them and feel them. A variant of this technique is mixing in important things amongst a lot of stuff that is unimportant. It was explained to me by one schizophrenic. He gave an actual example. During a first meeting, he That's not Joan. I think you can get that without an example. Is that it is like, yeah, so it's like a good deal of schizophrenia is simply nonsense, red herring speech, to prolong filibustering, to throw off dangerous people off the scent, to create boredom and futility in others. This schizophrenic is often making a fool of himself and the doctor. He's playing at being mad to avoid at all costs the possibility of being held responsible for a single coherent idea or intention. Patients, so this is according to Joan, patients laugh and posture when they can't see through the doctor who says, when they see through the doctor who says he will help but really won't or can't. Posturing for a girl is seductive, but it's also an effort to distract the doctor away from all of her pelvic functions. The patient tries to divert and distract him. They try to please the doctor, but also confuse him so he won't get into anything important. When you find people who will really help, you don't need to distract them. You can act in a normal way. I can sense that the doctor not only wants to help, but also can and will help. So, and according to Carl Jung, the schizophrenic ceases to be schizophrenic when he meets someone by whom he feels understood. Meeting you made me feel like a traveler who's been lost in a land where no one speaks his language. Worst of all, the traveler doesn't even know where he should be going. He feels completely lost and helpless and alone. Then, suddenly, he meets a stranger who can speak English. Even if the stranger doesn't know the way to go, it feels so much better to be able to share this problem with someone, to have them understand how badly you feel. If you're not alone and you don't feel hopeless anymore. Somehow it gives you life and a willingness to fight again. Being crazy is like one of those nightmares where you try to call out for help and no sounds come out. Or, if you can call, no one hears or understands. You can't wake up from the nightmare unless somebody does hear you and helps you to wake up. That's fucked. The main agent in uniting the patient and allowing the pieces to come together and cohere is the physician's love, a love that recognizes the patient's total being and accepts it with no strings attached. And then this is Joan on not fucking her doctor. If you had actually screwed me, it would have wrecked everything. It would have convinced me that you were only interested in the pleasure with my animal body and that you didn't really care about the part that was a person. It would have meant that you were using me like a woman when I really wasn't one and I needed a lot of help to grow into one. It would have meant that you could only see my body and couldn't see the real me, which was still a little girl. The real me would have been up on the ceiling watching you do things with my body. You would have seemed content to let the real me die. When you feed a girl, you make her feel that her body and herself are one. This helps her get joined together. When you screw her, she can feel her that her body is separate and dead. People can screw dead bodies, but they never feed them. My interviews were the only place where I felt safe to be myself, to let out all my feelings and see what they were really like without fear that you would get upset and leave. I needed you to be a great rock that I could push and pull, and still you would never roll away and leave me. It was safe for me to be bitchy with you. With everyone else, I was trying to change myself to please them. Hate has to come first. So, but also it was felt to be so charged with hatred and destructive potential that nothing could survive that entered into it. All right, I'm disorganizing this, but so what she's saying about hate is that hate has to come first. The patient hates the doctor for opening the wound again and hates himself for allowing himself to be touched again. The patient is sure that it will just lead to more hurt. He really wants to be dead and hidden in a place where nothing can touch him and drag him back. The patient has to care enough to keep after the doctor has to care enough to keep after the patient until he does hate. If you hate, you don't get hurt so much as if you love, but you still can be alive again, not just cold and dead. Excuse me. People mean something to you again. The doctor must keep after the patient until he does hate. That is the only way to get started. But the patient must never be able to feel guilty for hating. The doctor has to feel sure that he has the right to break into the illness, just as a parent knows that he has the right to walk into a baby's room, no matter what the baby feels about it. The doctor has to know he's doing the right thing. And the patient is terribly afraid of his own problems, since they have destroyed him. So he feels terribly guilty for allowing the doctor to be mixed into the problems. The patient is convinced that the doctor will be smashed too. It's not fair for the doctor to ask permission to come in. The doctor must fight his way in. Then the patient doesn't have to feel guilty. The patient can feel that he has done his best to protect the doctor. The doctor must say by his manner, I'm coming in again. I'm coming in no matter what you feel. The problem with schizophrenics is that they can't trust anyone. They can't put their eggs into one basket. The doctor will usually have to fight to get in no matter how much the patient objects. It's wonderful to be beaten up or killed because then no one ever does that to you unless they really care and can be made very upset. A person kills because he really wants the other person to be resurrected, not just lie dead. Loving is impossible at first because it turns you into a helpless little baby. The patient can't feel safe to do this unless he's absolutely sure the doctor understands what is needed and will provide it. The dread of taking in anything or anyone thus extends to good as well as bad. The bad will destroy the self will destroy the good. The self is therefore at the same time empty and starving. The whole orientation of the self is in terms of longing to eat, yet destroying the food or being destroyed by it. She does a great fucking job at this, actually. We got 10 minutes left. Okay. So some people go through life with vomit on their lips. You can feel their terrible hunger, but they defy you to feed them. It's hellish misery to see the breast being offered gladly with love, but to know that it's getting close will make you hate it as you hated your mothers. It makes you feel hellish guilt, because before you can love, you have to be able to feel the hate too. The doctor has to show that he can feel this hate, but understand and not be hurt by it. It's too awful if the doctor is going to be hurt by the sickness. It's hell to want the milk so much, but to be torn by guilt for hating the breast at the same time. Consequently, the schizophrenic has to try to do 3 things at once. He's trying to get to the breast. He's also trying to die. A third part of him is trying not to die. And then she has poetry. And this is about her location. or like, her psychic location. There is no gentleness, no softness, no warmth in this deep cave. My hands have felt along the cave's stony sides, and in every crevice there is only black depth. Sometimes there is almost no air. Then I gasp for new air, though all the time I am breathing the very air that is in this cave. There is no opening, no outlet. I am imprisoned, but not alone. So many people crowd against me. A narrow shaft of light streams into this cave from a minute space between two rocks. It is dark in here. It is damp and the air is so very stale. The people in here are large, enormous. They echo themselves when they talk, and their shadows on the cave walls follow them as they move. I don't know what I look like, nor how these people look. These people step on me, sometimes by careless mistake, I think, I hope. They are heavy people. It is getting tighter and tighter in here. I am frightened. If I get out of here, it may be terrible. More of these people would be outside. They would crush me altogether, for they are even heavier than those in here, I think. Soon the people in here will step on me by mistake, I think, so often that there won't be much left of me, and I shall become part of the cave walls. Then I shall be an echo and a shadow, along with all the other people in here who have become echoes and shadows. I am not very strong anymore. I am frightened. There is nothing for me outside of here. The people are bigger and would push me back into this cave. The people outside don't want me. The people in here don't want me. I don't care. The cave walls are so very hard, so very rough and hard. Soon I shall be a part of them, hard and immovable also, so very hard. I ache from being stepped on by the people in here, but they don't mean to step on me, and it's just a careless mistake that they do, I think, I hope. It might be interesting to see what I look like, but I can never get into that shaft of life that creeps into this cave because of the people block my way by mistake, I think, I hope. But it might be terrible to see what I look like, because then I might see that I am like the other people in here. I am not, I hope. Strip this cave. Strip it of all its cruel edges that bruise and cut my limbs. Pour light on it, cleanse it, get the echoes and shadows out. Drown the people's murmurs, blow the cave up with dynamite. No, I don't, not yet. Wait until I stand up in the corner. Now I am walking. There I have stepped on you, and you, and you, and you. Do you feel my heel? Do you suffer from a kick? Ha, now I'm stepping on you. Are you crying? Good. So this is it's a metaphor that she feels trapped in. And then let's see. I think that this is the last stanza of the poem. There is no cave. It is gone. But when did I go? I cannot find me. Where am I lost? And all I know is that I am cold, and it is colder than I was in the cave. So very, very cold. And the people, they have walked on me as though I wasn't there, among them by mistake, I think, I hope. Yes, I want the cave. There I know where I am. I can grope in the dark and feel the cave walls. And the people there know I'm there, and they step on me by mistake, I think, I hope. But outside, where am I? So that's her poem. And she says the thing about everybody should have a family or a mom that loves them. And then there's the definition of the self through others, which is like, I only existed because you wanted me to. And this is her talking to Ling as a therapist. And I could only, or no, she was talking to a clinical researcher who was a therapist. I forget their names, but I only existed because you wanted me to, and I could only be what you wanted to see. I only felt real because of the reactions I could produce in you. If I had scratched you and you didn't feel it, then I'd be really dead. It could only be good if you saw it in me. I was only good when I looked at myself through your eyes. It was only through when I looked at myself through your eyes that I could see anything good. Otherwise, I saw myself as a starving, annoying brat whom everyone hated, and I hated myself for being that way. I wanted to tear out my stomach for being so hungry. The first time I cried, you made a terrible mistake. You wiped away my tears with a handkerchief. You have no idea how much I wanted to fear those tears roll down my face. At least I had some feelings that were on the outside. If only you could have licked my tears with your tongue, I would have been completely happy. Then you would have shared my feelings. When I was catatonic, I tried to be dead and gray and motionless. I thought Mother would like that. She would carry me around like a doll. I felt as though I were in a bottle. I could feel everything that was around me, that was outside, and I couldn't touch me. I could feel that everything was outside, and I couldn't touch me. I had to die to keep from dying. I know that sounds crazy, but one time a boy hurt my feelings very much, and I wanted to jump out in front of a subway. Instead, I went a little catatonic so I wouldn't feel anything. But I guess you had to die emotionally, or your feelings would have killed you. That's right. I guess I'd rather kill myself than harm somebody else. So yeah, her everything about her in the book is just, I would say, fire. It's a great account of it. I mean, I think it's an interesting quandary where there's just this sort of like, so people need like, it's like, what is sophistication and what does it mean to be an adult? What does it mean to be fully formed? You know, it's like if somebody's not willing to take a stroll with a schizophrenic through the way that they express, how do you expect them to express? You know, where it's like, that's like what she means, where it's like all the misdirection and all the smoke and mirrors. Is that it's like, yeah, it's a lot of nonsense and misinformation because if you gave a fuck, you pay attention. And if you paid attention, that means that you're willing to pay attention, and that means you're willing to construct the world with the schizophrenic. And then they will actually communicate with you because it feels like you're playing along in the game with them. So I think that yet another reason why that is a magnificent book and why it really stands up to what's going on. Or just, you know, psychology in general. Otherwise, we're getting medical cannabis in Mexico. That's cool. 40% of people who are smoking weed reported that they stopped all opiate use. That's cool. Weed. Okay, I'm still yawning. Weed is not associated with the risk of cardiovascular. It's not included with the increased risk. We already covered the MS one. And fibromyalgia. I'm bad at pronouncing that. Illinois expunges 500,000 cannabis-related criminal records. That's fucking awesome. That's good, guys. So, yeah, cool. That's just kind of the news in brief. There you go. News, books, all that. High lit coming together. Great news. Shouts out Ambiguous Amphibian. He's a video game guy. I like his videos. They're pretty. Hey, everybody's got their criticisms, but like, you know, overall, great fucking content producer. Highly recommend. I don't even play video games, but I fucking like watching him play video games because you know what? He's a good dude. What else can I leave with? I don't know. The book's online. Yeah, and we're now pushing in Detroit. We're pushing towards decriminalizing sex work. Hell yeah, hell yeah! I want my brothels and I want my opium dens. They should be legal. All drugs should be legal. Sex work should be legal. We're very firm on that decision. We're very firm backers of both of those things on this show. Highly support prostitution. Highly support drugs. It's our American right, you know. Books that were referenced in this, we got What Is to Be Done. Decent. I'm still working through it. And we got Divided Self. Fucking amazing. One of the best and most readable psychological works out there, I think. Journal of Eugene Delacroix. Banger. Straight banger. One of the best journals out there. And Hero Over Time by Lermontov. Another just, all those are high lit. We got the Misanthrope too. So I think that's everything that we referenced in this podcast. Again, Let's see. This is my book. This is the book that's on Amazon. Death of the American Novelist. You can pick it up. We changed the form around a little bit, but you should be reading. Try it out. Try it out. It looks like a normal book, looks about same size, all that. This is a Penguin book, so similar features. Only like 200 something pages. Come on, give it a shot. Give it a shot. Anyways, this is Carlisle Fletcher with High Lit. Have a good day. Thanks for tuning in.